welcome to Let Them Talk. I'm Paul DiRienzo. Got another great show in store for you. Our guests here in the studio, Zhishun Ning and Stephanie Crane of the Chinatown Working Group, who are going to talk about their struggle to prevent the construction of ridiculously high upper luxury housing, a la Mr. Trump and his son-in-law, to totally blot out everybody's view and access and all the communities and neighborhoods that have lived for so many decades, and really, if you look at the history, hundreds of years in this community, and they're running into, oh my God, resistance. Thank goodness for resistance, guys. And I'm glad when I heard you guys talking last night, I was at the meeting and stuff, and I said, I want the resistance here. You got the resistance, the real resistance. Welcome to Let Them Talk.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Glad to have you on.
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to show a little clip in a minute that hopefully explains a lot of the politics, but let's start by asking you guys to describe to me exactly what the Chinatown Working Group is and what its purpose is.
Well, you want the long version or the short
Well, we'll start with the short version and then we'll develop it.
So Chinatown Working Group, it's a group that's created to develop a rezoning plan. And it's composed of organizations in the community of Chinatown and the Lower East Side. Yep. And we want to develop a plan, like I said, the rezoning plan, which is to protect the community.
Right, and we've had programs. I've had folks on, because I'm in the more, the white part of town, the East Village, what they call it. We used to call it the Lower East Side, right? And that got all this great rezoning in order to protect all the beautiful housing that's on the side streets in return for allowing them to build taller buildings on the big avenues. And we feel that's a done deal, and people are happy to get it. But I was shocked to see a map that showed that the areas that you're talking about, Chinatown and the surrounding areas, Cherry Street and along South Street, they're outside of this rezoning area.
Because the Chinatown Working Group actually has a history with the East Village rezoning, which got passed in 2008. Because the city was able to protect the more, like I said, the more white middle class area of East Village. But it excluded the Chinatown and the Lower East Side, which is predominantly Chinese, Latinos, and blacks. So we've been saying that it's racist, right? We want equal protection. Why the white middle class area can get it, and why not us? Right. And you can see like the Lower East Side is a very hard area for development. It's downtown, and it's in the heart of Manhattan. Right. So we belong to the same community group, community board, and
Community Board 3.
Community Board 3, yeah. So you have the East Village protected, but why not Chinatown and the Lower East Side? Right. So at that time we fought. It was in 2008. So it was.
What does that mean? What does it mean if you're not protected by zoning? What can they do?
Well, the zoning is actually a tool, and it kind of set the regulation on how and what you can build on that particular piece of land.
Without protection, without zoning, what can they build? They saw one thing, I couldn't believe it I didn't know they built that. It was a gigantic...
Yeah, the Excel Tower.
Excel Tower, how high is that?
It's 80 stories.
80 stories.
Yeah.
Downtown.
Yep.
All right, and in what was a one-story area, right? Basically 2-story, 3-story buildings. Basically.
It was a Pathmark.
Pathmark was a Pathmark there, right?
Yeah.
So it was replaced by an 85-story building, and they want to build more of these.
Yep.
3 more, right?
Yeah.
How many more?
3.
3 more 85-story buildings.
Yes.
In this
low-rise
area, and a beautiful area along Market Street and Cherry Street, where the streets go the other way.
Yeah.
Henry Street, right? It has an ancient history. So where there was a cherry orchard at one time, hundreds of years ago, right? There was actually, that's why it's called Cherry Street. And George Washington lived there.
Yes.
Yes, is that so? It's a very historic area. They're obliterating it.
Yeah.
And they want to obliterate it.
Yes.
But you guys don't want them. So what are you going to do? How are you going to get all these? Are you getting any help from these politicians?
Well, I mean, at first, like I said, back in 2008, it was Bloomberg, and we fought to have the Chinatown Working Group established because then the city would say, okay, you guys want to have your own thing, then you guys should come up with one. Yeah. So that's how the Chinatown Working Group was formed back in back then. But also, originally it was only covered the Chinatown area. That's why it's called Chinatown Working Group. But it originally excluded the Lower East Side, which means that the NYCHR and the waterfront, and people fought for it. They fought to include the Lower East Side as well. So then
the old Lower East Side, south of Houston And
yeah, the whole area.
Right, down to
because
everything.
originally it was like, oh, you get the core of Chinatown, but then we were successfully got the Lower East Side
and people live there. Families live there for generations, and family, and it's generally a low income but still very tight community neighborhood where people know each other. We have a video, and I'm going to play a couple minutes of that video. Let's play about 4 minutes of the video, and then we'll talk more about what we saw and about the role of some of these politicians and what they've said and how they've helped you and hurt you and how you dealt with that. All right, let's go right to the video.
I have not understood, I'm going to be very straightforward, all the nuances until I was preparing for this town hall meeting. We are trying to figure ways to maximize affordable housing. We are trying to figure out ways that we can address other community concerns as part of the process. We don't believe we can just turn it off. We think it is, I'm just being real with you, we believe it is legally moving forward and that's legally appropriate. I can tell you up front that you can say that, but I'm telling you the truth.
I really disagree with the administration because every time I look at those proposed tower, it really makes me sick to my stomach.
In the past 7.5 years, Councilwoman Margaret Chin never held a town hall meeting. But lately, while running a re-election campaign for a third term, she has taken on the role of a community fighter.
If you rule against this community, we will use every tool at our disposal to make sure the voices of the people are heard.
The main contested issue, waterfront development.
Okay, there is already a process that ensures all of those things along with a city council vote. It's called ULUR, Uniform Land Use Review Process.
It takes about 7 months. It goes through several bodies to get approval. In all of this, it's the City Planning Commission and the City Council that have the most power. Perhaps Margaret Chin is following a general pattern that the local city council person basically tries to enhance their negotiating power by not fully supporting a rezoning at the beginning. Because if they come out and say, oh, I'm all for this, then they really don't have any leverage in negotiation. So they figure maybe we can get some little goodies out of this. We can get some concessions from developers. Even if I go out and say I'm opposed to it, knowing full well that behind closed doors I can talk to the developers, I can talk to the City Planning Commission people, the City Planning Department, and be making deals.
So here comes the key question. Does Chin want to stop the high rises?
A coalition of groups delivered petitions to Stringer asking him to vote to stop the East Side rezoning plan. Opponents say the plan to block high-rise development is biased against minority communities by only covering the largely white and wealthy areas and ignoring Chinatown and the far Lower East Side.
The community developed a rezoning plan called the Chinatown Working Group Rezoning Plan. The plan would set height limits on new developments as a way to discourage luxury condos from coming in and stop gentrification. The plan would cover both neighborhoods of Chinatown and the Lower East Side that is facing displacement, including the waterfront. What did Chin do?
My office is on the front lines with the community in a neighborhood planning conversation in Chinatown with the goal of creating an implementable neighborhood plan.
今天在这里非常的愤怒，我们的民选官员
She proposed a Chinatown-only plan that would only protect the core of Chinatown and exclude the waterfront from protection, and dismissed the community's opposition as not cooperating. Since then, the frustration over the proposed luxury towers on the waterfront has only intensified. In May 2017, Chin sent a letter to the waterfront tenants claiming she's not able to stop these buildings from coming up, and instead will influence how they affect the Two Bridges community. In an interview, she explicitly says what this influence is: ULURP, which can enable the city council to have a say on the mandatory affordable units the developers have to offer.
There's a myth that's been going around, a big lie that it's a done deal, that nothing can be done. We now know that this is a lie. This area is governed by the large-scale residential development plan. There are very specific regulations that say any new development cannot adversely impact the livelihoods of people who live in this community.
You can't get these special authorizations or special permits unless you can show that you are not going to materially interfere with the communities.
We've now discovered that the city has been lying to us and actually violating its own zoning laws to fast-track construction.
Lesson found a legal solution in the zoning resolution that can actually stop the towers. According to law, the city should set up legally binding community hearings and get state and federal agencies involved to prove how the humongous towers will negatively affect the surrounding environment.
We want our elected officials to show some accountability, talk to us about what's really going on, give us some answers, and we want the involved government agencies to get involved.
Lesson has since set up meetings with elected officials to propose a solution, including Margaret Chin.
We are here to turn the page in our fight against the 3 mega tower proposed for the Two Bridges neighborhood.
Chin has since changed her tone.
These projects are not a done deal.
But never in any occasion did she mention Lesson's solution.
And we will pursue whatever means necessary.
No longer in the newspaper or letters can you find her answer to the key question of whether she can stop the towers, except, of course, an occasional slip-through-the-mouth statement from her die-hard followers.
All we are asking for is for the Department of City Planning to follow the law. Thank you.
The media has mildly criticized Chin for not fighting hard enough. But is it just a matter of degree? Take a closer look at one of Chin's flyers. In it, she claims she couldn't help pass the Chinatown Working Group rezoning plan because Department of City Planning rejected it. But just a few paragraphs above, she writes she will fight for ULURP even though DCP rejected the request. Is she really just not fighting hard enough, or is she purposely choosing a losing battle that will allow the luxury towers to go up?
She is rallying to protest towers that wouldn't even have been imagined if she supported the community-based zoning policy, the Chinatown Working Group plan.
If not asserting community interests because of the enormous amount of money and power that's facing you, maybe you shouldn't be in politics.
Okay, guys, thanks a lot. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Why are you cutting the press conference? Why are you cutting the press conference? No, this is the community right here. This is the community right here.
this is an election year. We're going to remember who has sided with the people and who has worked against the people.
Politicians like de Blasio and Chin, who collude with rich developers to displace our communities, should have no place in our city. Do not vote for them in the coming election. Organize to push the city to pass the Chinatown Working Group rezoning plan and protect our community.
Now, what an interesting video. Thank you. So, and here's the filmmaker, Zhishun, Ning, who actually was the producer of this piece, and Stephanie Crane, who's also with the Chinatown Working Group. And that was very informative. It really, I had no idea, and this is going on in our neighborhood, and I hope a lot of folks are watching it, you know, in the Lower East Side, around Tompkins Square Park, East Village area, that, and see this, because, you know, we've been through this. We were discussing it earlier, so we know what it's like to have the city come in and just, like, you know, squat on top of everything the community is trying to do, right? And it's fascinating what you guys are trying to do. And number one, where do they want to put these tall buildings you were saying where they want to put it? I couldn't believe it. I thought, what, are they going to tear down those other apartment buildings that are there? No, they're going to actually...
They're going to actually build next to it, right next to it. And there's one particular building, actually, there's a senior building. It's 80 Ruckus. One of the buildings, it's actually going to go on top of that building because they bought the air rights.
So they'll go up, over, and up like that, like an L.
Another 70 stories up there.
Oh, my God. And so there's a wall, like this big glass and stone wall between the riverfront and the community. And destroying all that whole area along South Street. Where there was a huge flood today. Did you see that? There was a water main break for a couple of blocks. I don't know if that has anything to do with this. They knew we were having this meeting, right? This program. So okay, so now that's said. So the actual horrendous nature of what the grotesque thing that they're trying to do. You're trying to bring everybody in the community together. I see that, which is wonderful and very interesting. Not just limited to the people there, but to actually expand it. And talking about zoning, this whole idea now that Councilwoman Chin is talking about, where is the city planning department, something that she's trying to work with on one hand, the city planning department to regulate what they're doing, and the other thing, which is what you guys are, the total rezoning of the area to prevent this kind of, that's the conflict, it seems, right?
Yeah, definitely. It's duplicitous.
Because there's this confusion, because if you look at a newspaper, probably the rhetoric is similar. Like you said, see in the video that, Chin says she wants to fight, right? And we said, of course, we want to fight, but I think the question becomes like, who really want to stop the towers? Because obvious for Chin that she's not going to stop it. Right. She's going to use what's called the Euler process, which is like a rubber stamp. She's going to try to fight for some concessions, a little bit more like the so-called affordable units in those luxury towers. But we'll let the towers go up, versus us.
The 80-20 plan all over again.
Yeah, like probably a little bit more affordable units.
But not for sure that they'll even build it there. They might just take the actual value and move that to the Bronx.
Yeah, that's what usually happens.
Right, they're not going to actually make low-income housing in those buildings.
I can't say for sure, but it's the
that's
point.
Our experience in the East Village area.
Yeah. I mean, we've seen that, But I think the point is that she doesn't really want to stop it.
Right.
Because we actually challenged the environmental impact statement process, which currently going on, because what the city is trying to do is they look at the impact that these buildings will bring to the community, and we feel like there's a lot of limitations in what they want to study. They don't consider a lot of things. For example, like the sewage system, which will be overloaded. It's already overloaded.
As I said, we had a water main break, and there was a flood for 3 blocks. It was the top story on the news today.
Yeah, like things like that. When you do the construction, what about the surrounding buildings? Because like when now with the Excel being under construction already,
like the 85-story building that's already been built.
Yeah, like people living in the the nearby buildings already complain. You have the cracks and all that. That's already caused that. So imagine like 3 other buildings like that coming up at the same time. What we will bring to the community.
Right.
And also like you said, I also mentioned this building is going to block the sunlight to the Nitro building, actually right across the street.
And that was enough to stop construction of tall buildings along Central Park. Right, so if you're wealthy people along Central Park and you had Jackie Onassis on your side, you could stop that, you know. And thank goodness they did. I'm glad they did. But do you have any big stars on your side? Do you have any Chinatown figures of great import who are celebrities who know Donald Trump? Anybody like that? Or Jared Kushner? Is Kushner involved in this? No Jared Kushner involvement? No. Somebody was my friend keeps saying, Jared Kushner. He's not involved. He's in our neighborhood. He's up in East Village. Yeah. So how are you getting everybody involved? How are you getting, like, is there a web page? How do you get people involved? And which are the other groups that are involved? Like, what is your organization?
Youth Against Displacement.
Youth Against Displacement. And your organization?
I'm an organizer from Chinese Staff and Workers Association.
Right, very good. Progressive organizations doing a lot of good work. What other groups are involved?
There are many, like the National Mobilization Against Sweatshops. You have
Artists Against Displacement.
Yeah, Artists Against Displacement, and then you have like a lot of groups, right? You know, like.
Is it growing? Is there an interest?
Yeah, I think at the beginning, like the group, like, you know, because everyone can join, and during the development process, a lot of like different interests also come in, like even the developers. So we actually internally there was a big fight, you know, like who what interests they're gonna represent, you know, all that, and then different groups, you know, propose different plan, right? And my organization belonged to a coalition called the Coalition to Protect Chinatown and the Lower East Side, and we put up what's called the People First Plan, which largely adopted in the end to become what's now the Chinatown Working Group Plan.
I see.
And so in that we have some key principles. For example, we're gonna set a cap high limits on any new developments. And then we also require that any developments to be built on public land to be 100% for the low-income families currently, you know, living in the Nitro. So in the end, we want to use that to kind of, you know, kind of discourage any luxury developments, right? We don't want to say like no developments. We do want to have some developments, but developments for whom, right? Ultimately, so is it for the community or is it, you know, for the rich people?
Right.
You know, and
we are close to downtown, and they can just like get out and ride their little bicycles over to the stock market, and by doing that, they'll displace what has been a poor neighborhood for hundreds of years. Although it was a rich neighborhood hundreds of years ago, but it hasn't been that way for a long time, and now they want to turn it back. It seems turn back the clock to the days of the old merchant princes of New York.
But
you're saying I guess so. I'll take your word for it. It must be. Right? Well, that's sad. But so, what's the address? How do people get in touch with you?
They can.
Any email? Even a straight email or a phone number.
You know, you can go to check out the website for more information about the Chinatown Working Group Plan. The website is ChinatownWorkingGroup.org. And then if you want to learn more about the strategy to actually stop the towers on the waterfront, as you see in the video, the lesson group, they have a website. It's called LESON-NYC.org.
It stands for Lower East Side Organized Neighbors.
Yeah, right. Correct. And so, what is the next step? I was at a meeting last night, and you were electing officers and all of that. You're firming up your organization, or what's the next plan? How are you going to organize? Are you going to have street actions? Are you going to go to the community boards? Have you been doing that? What things are you going to be doing?
I think for the plan itself, we've been through all the process, and we do see that this
is the Chinatown Working Group zoning plan.
Yep.
Right? So you've been through the process. What's happening with that right now?
Well, the mayor said that we are too ambitious, you know, and we were angry, you know, we're asking for equal protection like the East Village.
What do you think of de Blasio? I mean, books have been written about how progressive he is and how he's the newest neighbor. He's like the greatest thing since sliced toast. He's been he was hailed by Bernie Sanders, and you're saying that this is a front?
Well, I mean, you know, he ultimately had to see like whose interest he's protecting. And to me, you know, he's no different from Trump, because Trump and de Blasio protect the same interests, the rich developers, and, you know, at the expense of working class communities, you know, like Chinatown and the Lower East Side. And not only that, like, you know, you look around the city, happening like everywhere. East Harlem, South Bronx, East New York, and all that. They all suffer from de Blasio's own rezoning, which is to put like luxury high rises, over those neighborhoods.
Well, they put it around here, right? Where if you looked as we were coming in, that wasn't there 5 years ago.
No.
None of that stuff was there 5 years ago. So they're not building housing for poor people, at least not in Manhattan. And
yeah, I mean, he put up like a facade of like progressivism. Like, oh, I'm building affordable housing, but like majority of them are market rates, and even the little bit of affordable housing is not affordable, to the communities.
Well, what's the alternative if the most progressive mayor it seems like we could get, if Margaret Chin, who fought as the first Asian American city council person, this kind of thing. We thought these were all breakthroughs, and that it was going to be a great ride from now on, and it's not turning out. What do you think should happen? What do we do in this situation?
I think ultimately, the community should organize and build a base and figure out what to do. And I think the Chinatown and the Lower East Side, we have an example. We're not only saying no to the luxury high rises, but we put out an alternative, which is the Chinatown Working Group.
Right. The plan, the zoning plan, and it's similar to, and we, as you said, it's been a success, and we've had programs here. I've had folks come up on the show to talk about the limitations that were won as far as the East Village, because we, even 5 years ago, it was like any day now the bulldozers were going to flatten the East Village and put 80-story buildings there, and now that's not going to, at least as far as I know, that's not going to happen. I mean, we've had a lot of development that I don't like, but it's not 80-story buildings. 8-story, 10-story, 15-story buildings, a little different than what we feared. Is that what you would like to see, something like that?
Yeah. I mean, we want the equal protection.
Right, equal, and put the large-scale development in some area away from where the people are, maybe.
Well, I mean,
put it in Midtown. I mean, I don't want the Lower East Side to look like Midtown Manhattan. I don't want it to feel that way. Yeah. It's ground zero for working communities and immigrants and artists, and always has been. And I think if we wanted the Lower East Side to look like a place like Midtown or Los Angeles, we would go and live there, but that's not where we are.
Right. We want to protect it as a people's community, right? And which is a long history. We've already lost a lot of it, but it's not like it's entirely lost. If guys like you, folks like you, are working as hard as you're doing and making coalitions the way you're doing and taking on the mayor and powerful interests, then whatever anybody says about the Lower East Side, we haven't lost entirely.
Right.
Yeah,
we're still fighting. As long as we're still fighting, right? We're alive. We're still happening. Half a minute. Last words.
Well, if you want to, learn what we do and want to support our work, go to check out the website, leson-nyc.org. And if you want to know more about the Chinatown Working Group rezoning plan, just go to the website ChinatownWorkingGroup.org.
Thank you very much, Zhishun Ning and Stephanie Crane, and we'll be following this very closely. Thank you, and see you next week.
Thank you for your time.